Our first reading today comes from Hebrews chapter 13, verses 1 through 3, and then 15 and 16. Let mutual love continue. Do not neglect to show hospitality to strangers, for by doing that some have entertained angels without knowing it. Remember those who are in prison as though you were in prison with them, those who are being tortured as though you yourselves were being tortured. Through him, then, let us continually offer a sacrifice of praise to God, that is, the fruit of lips that confess his name. Do not neglect to do good and to share what you have, for such sacrifices are pleasing to God. May God richly bless the reading and understanding of his holy word.
Today's gospel scripture is Luke 14, 1 through 14. Now here again, we've got Jesus teaching a lesson, actually two lessons, and these again are things that you could read over and they're like, okay, it makes sense, and then all this. But these are exactly the times you need to stop and think and reread it. So, Luke 14, 1 through 14. One Sabbath, when Jesus went to eat in the house of a prominent Pharisee, he was being carefully watched. There in front of him was a man suffering from abnormal swelling of his body. Jesus asked the Pharisees and experts in the law, is it lawful to heal on the Sabbath or not? But they remained silent. So taking hold of the man, he healed him, sent him on his way. Then he asked them, if one of you has a child or an ox that falls into a well on the Sabbath day, will you not immediately pull it out? They had nothing to say. When he noticed how the guests picked the places of honor at the table, he told them this parable. When someone invites you to a wedding feast, do not take the place of honor, for a person more distinguished than you may have been invited. If so, the host who invited both of you will come and say to you, give this person your seat. Then, humiliated, you will have to take the least important place. But when you're invited, take the lowest place, so that when your host comes, he will say to you, friend, move up to a better place. Then you will be honored in the presence of all the other guests. For all those who exalt themselves to be humble will be humble, and those who humble themselves will be exalted. Then he said to his host, when you give a luncheon or dinner, do not invite your friends or relatives or sisters or brothers or your rich neighbors. If you do, they may invite you back, so you will be repaid. But when you give a banquet, invite the poor, the crippled, the lame, the blind. You will be blessed. Although they cannot repay you, you will be repaid at the resurrection of the righteous. Now, this struck me as something that I titled it, do good and share. Doesn't that go back to when you were a little kid? I remember in elementary school, that was part of your report card. Those little boxes that are checked, gets along with others, plays well with others, shares. Those little things, little comments. And that was part of your record, whether you were good and shared. Now, I don't know if they still do that or not. That was a long time ago. But it's just all part of life, all part of growing up. I don't know if that's as much emphasized now. I don't know if it was just my parents, but something like I remember a few things from before elementary school days. Not much, but some. There's one thing that sticks out in my mind. Is my mom, I was the youngest. The other two were already in school. And so every time my mom had to go somewhere, go to the grocery store or something, I went along. And when we'd go to the grocery store, she would get me, remember those little box of animal crackers? I think they're still there. They got the, the little circus wagon. They got the different, those things aren't good. They're bland. They're more cracker than cookie. But when you're 5 or 6 years old, it's pretty good, But my mom made it a point, and I remember this the rest of my life. She would make it a point to where I would start doing it before she told me, just so I could get ahead of her. If we ran into another mother and kid, which we always did, I was to share. I was to take and hold that box out and share my animal crackers with that kid. That was a rule. That's just the way I was raised. The report card thing. Believe it or not, I did really well on those. I got all the good checks. I got the good comments. Didn't last, but I got them back then. Sunday school. You learned all those things in Sunday school. Sunday school and church was like school. You had to go. You just went. It was part of life. And I remember one time when I was a young teenager, before I was driving, my sister and I, at that time got pretty close. And I remember one time we went to Kmart to go shopping. Well, I saw this shirt. Now I got to describe this to you. Now you got to remember this is late 60s. I saw this shirt. That it was this color but a little darker. And the sleeve, the cuffs went all the way up to here. It had 6 buttons on it. From there, the sleeve poofed. Big pirate sleeve. The guy, she's back there, if you know what I'm talking about. The collar was real long and came down to a point about here, and you left it unbuttoned until about there. And the whole thing was like a crepey kind of, just, it was pimping.
You're really telling your age.
Hey, I've got pictures of it. I got pictures of wearing that with white and blue jean striped jeans, and the stripes were this wide. I was dressed. And we were shopping, and she had gone to get something for herself. She was working. And I saw that shirt, and I was like, oh, wow. I had a little bit, but I didn't have enough money to get it, and I really wanted it. And she liked it. I never will forget, she put her stuff back and bought me that shirt. Now, being a sister, she kind of let me know about it, but kind of, held it over me for a couple of days. But still, she put her stuff back to buy me that shirt because she could always get what she was, going after, but this was something that her little brother wanted. And that is kindness. That's all it is. She did not have to do that. She could have said, save up more and you get it. Which, is fine, but she did that. Like I said, great parents. Parents that emphasize that wherever you went, and they showed it. They shared. My uncle had, one of my uncles had 11 kids, and they struggled. My parents gave them everything they had. They took care of both of their parents. Just showed everything. Didn't make no big deal out of it. Didn't complain about it though either. Then, as far as being good and sharing, you get into your early teen years. You're starting to get stuff. Starting to get the cool presents now. No more toys, no more. You're starting to get the cool stuff. The stuff that everybody in school wants. electronics or whatever it was at the time. Which we did have electronics back then, believe it or not. And some of the kids are working jobs and some aren't. So when you go out running around doing something as a group, there'd be somebody had some money of their own. Other people were either, it's the money they got for the weekend from their parents or didn't have any. I had friends that would, all right, I'll get this. When you get a job, you get it. That is a kindness that a teenager does not normally, possess. It is hard to do. You have to look around, look for need. When you get to your adult years, goodness and sharing take on a whole different aspect. Now it's kind of, it should be sort of a responsibility, not just something to do. You got to work to put a roof over your head or your family's head. You're trying to start a savings for the future if you're smart. If you're not smart like I was, you don't, and then you don't have it. So if somebody tells you to do it, do it. You're maybe moving up in social class. Maybe you kind of moved up into the upper crowd, into that next bunch, and they start accepting you. You kind of go with that. And then in your older adult, a lot of times it's, well, I just don't have enough to share. I'm barely getting by. That is a overused and excuse that's fraught with holes. Because time is valuable. When it comes to being good and sharing, your time is just as valuable as any donation, anything you do. Your time is just as valuable. And making an effort to share and be good to people is priceless. But it takes effort. You've got to be willing to do it. You've got to be looking. And that's where you can seek. You need to seek where there's a need. There are needs out there. There are a ton of needs out there. And not just the big major ones of course, they're great. The Cancer Association. All those other big associations, if you can give something, do. But they're doing all right. If it comes down to it and you've got limited, you might need to it's okay to be a little more discerning about what you do with your time and money and property and everything else. Local and lesser known things. Now, you don't hesitate to ask either. If you don't know of anything, I moved here. I didn't know of anything. I figured out, I can go back to coaching. That'll be a way to reach out. But I got to get to know people. And through that, a lot of things, but something I'd never been involved in. Till I moved here, I was never involved in a Rotary Club or a Lions Club or, Shriners or any of those. Just didn't do it. When I moved here, because they meet here, because we had members that were saying, "Oh, you should come to Lions Club," I did, and I joined. I am so glad I did. They had the ability to find the need, and I was part of it here a while back. We were looking for a new place to give food, for people that need to go get food. They just don't, and that's a need that's big around here. People have trouble a lot of times stocking their food. And all I did was make a few phone calls and a few inquiries, and I started getting a flood. We had to pick from a list because you just can't do all. And we had a hard time picking. Matter of fact, we ended up picking 2. So if you can look and find the need, it's there. It's not always publicized. The part of being a Christian and part of doing good and sharing is making the effort to find it. Don't just wait for it to fall in your lap or somebody knock on the door and say, can you help us? But be discerning. Pray about it. Ask God, is this the right thing for me to do? Or what can I do? Or show me a place. Give me the idea or the place where I need to do something, where I can do something with what I've got. Pray about it. But be aware, there's a lot of people out there that will see you doing things and abuse it. You got to be discerning about it. Now, I think one of the best things to do, one of the biggest examples, and one of the hardest things for me to do, and you don't see it a lot around here, but go to Lexington. I don't know about Cincinnati. Go to Louisville. In every major street corner, there's somebody with their cardboard sign. And people give them change, which sounds like a good idea. That's a group of people abusing you, abusing the fact that it make you feel good. You feel bad if you don't. Be discerning about it. So some of those organizations have been shown to be groups of people that meet at the end of the day, and a leader takes the money and distributes it out and takes some. You got to know what you're doing. You got to be discerning about it. Don't just throw your love and your sharing away. But you got to seek it. You got to be doing. You got to be willing to do it and make the effort. And something Jesus teaches us here in these scriptures is be anonymous. Be totally anonymous. Be humble. God knows. God knows. It's God. Jesus makes two lessons here. He spoke to the guests, telling them not to seek places of honor. Jesus regards service as the most important thing. No honor, no standing, no nothing like that's important. It's service. And the second one he was teaching here was he told the host not to be exclusive about who they invited. Now that is something I think we've all done. Whether we meant to do it or did it on purpose, or we know people, don't exclude someone. How about so-and-so? Then don't do that. Invite them. And don't expect reciprocation. Too many people do something expecting something in return. If you give to something, I don't know if this is right, I don't know, but it makes me, I feel better if when they say, here, do you want a tax form for this donation? No, I don't. I don't want any money back. I don't want it to go on. I don't want any kind of reciprocation. You do it. And that's the way you have to think about it. Be anonymous. God knows. Service is more important than any kind of recognition. And don't just do the easy ones. We talked about it before. During the holidays, it's easy to go to places, a soup kitchen, somewhere that's serving people, turkey dinners and all that kind of stuff. Go and join and get in and have. They've got usually too many volunteers. It's after the holidays when it gets nasty outside. And it's hard to get at. They're at the middle of the summer. You don't even think about it. Those people are still needing those food. They're still needing that service. And they have a hard time finding volunteers during those times because I've done it. Seek the hard ones. Easy ones, easy service is service, but go after the hard ones. Difficulties. Paul teaches us to go after difficulties are good. Struggle can be a blessing because you can rely on God and ask Jesus. Jesus wasn't afraid to go do what he did on this occasion. He had already been to the Pharisees' houses, and they're always, as we know, they're always trying to trick him into making a mistake and breaking the law. That's all they need. But he never falls into it. And here, a prominent Pharisee has asked him to his house. Would you go? Knowing that they're laying for you? I mean, this is an ambush. Would you go? Oh, that'd be hard. I don't know. I don't know if I would or not. Jesus went. He's totally unafraid of it. Because he knew. He knew they were wrong and he was right. They want to add too many rules. You know, in today's society, there's too many, other church organizations that add their own rules, and it turns a lot of people off or excludes a lot of people. Now, that's wrong. But it happens, and we got to be aware of that and fight that. Somebody turns somebody out, you invite them in. Come on in here. The disciples of Christ have been famous over the years about taking in those that were thrown out because of sexual orientation, whatever, race, intermarriage. There was a time when they were just asked to leave. Well, hopefully nobody does that anymore. Some do. All part of being good and sharing is just accepting Jesus, opening up your heart, looking for you giving the effort to share what you've got. If you don't have the money, find the time. If you don't have the time, do something. Provide a service. You hear a neighbor needs, I got to go to the doctor next week, but my son is doing something. Well, I'll take it. I've needed people to take me. It's just, my dad died and I moved up here away from my brother. I've had times where I've had people take me places where I wasn't supposed to drive, after the appointment. Look for those things, guys, and if it's done for you, do it for somebody else. Don't necessarily repay that person, but pass it on. The old song, pass it on. It only takes a spark to get a fire going. Pass it on. And Jesus does a lot of this. They try to ambush him and trick him, but he keeps on doing it. 7 times on the Sabbath, he did that. Jesus, in Mark, tells us about Jesus sending on the Sabbath a demon out of a man. And in Mark, Jesus heals Peter's mother-in-law. Remember that? We read about that. Jesus heals a lame man by the pool of Bethesda. We read that just a couple weeks ago. The man, nobody get out of the way, let the poor man in the pool. The soothing waters of that Bethesda pool. He just couldn't get there. And Jesus put him in there on the Sabbath. Heals a man with a shriveled hand. In Luke, he restores a crippled woman on the Sabbath. Jesus heals a man today with the abnormal swelling on the Sabbath. And he also heals a man born blind on a Sabbath in front of the Pharisees, breaking their law. Did they do anything? No. It says here, and they had nothing to say. You're wrong, and you know it. Over the centuries, the Jewish religious leaders, they added rule after rule to God's law. That kind of sounds familiar, doesn't it? People kept adding rules, amendments. Just for our benefit, we're going to do this. We're going to exclude you because we're going to add this. For example, God's law said that the Sabbath is a day of rest. But the religious leaders of the time added to that forbidding healing on the Sabbath because they considered that work. It was work for them. It was love and pleasure for Jesus. But healing was work for them and all that praying and stuff. That's work. That's against the law now. Don't ask us to do it. Come back on Monday. 7 times he did this. But in doing this, he was challenging the religious leaders to look beyond their rules to the true purpose, to honor God by helping those in need. We have to overlook those who make fun of us, who just say, I'm happy for you, but I just do not believe. I don't like the church. And a lot of people don't like the church organization. But they're okay with God and Jesus. But they don't like the organization. We have to look beyond those things to the true thing, the true meaning of being good and sharing, the true love that Jesus tells us about. Would God have been pleased if Jesus would have told the person, well, coming back and see me tomorrow, today's the Sabbath? No, I don't think so. If you go to the emergency room today, you want them saying, well, yeah, you definitely got a broken leg. Come back in the morning. I don't think so. So being good and sharing goes a long way with everything. Just want to wrap this lesson up with just remembering what Jesus did teach. Be humble. Be anonymous. Nobody needs to know but Jesus and God. They know. Don't try to sneak around doing something you're not supposed to do either, because nobody found out about it. Well, yeah, they did. They know. And it's going to eat at you. It's going to eat at you. Be good. Share. Sounds like a childhood thing. Well, the childhood things are good. Good to remember. Just like every now and then we sing "Jesus Loves Me." That song you do as a kid, and the little kid chorus in church, and growing up, the little kids going "Jesus loves." It's beautiful. We do it as adults because it takes us back, I think. But that's also the truth. The down to basic truth. And the down to basic truth and the lesson today is listen to the words of Jesus. Understand that this stuff is not magic. It's everyday life. It's there in front of you every day. All you got to do is accept it and act upon it. Make the effort. Just be nice to somebody. Share something with somebody. That's the message. And you'll be closer to Jesus. And you'll be closer to your inner self, and you'll be happier. So be good and share. Amen.